Good afternoon, Lisa. How are you?
Very nice to finally connect and work on this together.
It's been very excited to have you. Well, look, for the benefit of the audience, it would be great if you wouldn't mind giving an introduction on yourself.
Yeah, so I am Lisa Smith. I've been working as a value consultant way back since like 98, 99. And I've worked at a whole host of technology companies, first starting out in BEA, which now is part of the Oracle family. And I was sort of crafting this methodology way before I got into working with folks from the Blade Logic
Mm.
BMC area.
During the acquisition. Is that right?
No, I was after the
Got
acquisition.
it.
So I think a lot of the sort of initial leaders had left, but I really sort of grew into this role initially just working on like a pure business case. There was not much financial analysis in it. It was more like, let me help you construct slides to talk about your vision and your pain and things like that. But then by the time I got to VMware, it was just purely mathematics
Mm.
around how a VM helps avoid server sprawl. But then I also then went to BMC and did a lot around IT operations and ITIL, and they had a very robust methodology around business cases. Before I moved to Zscaler, I was with Salesforce for about 3 years.
You were on their business value services team there, right?
Yes, yeah. I loved the opportunity of talking about value in all different ways. And then when I came to Zscaler, a gentleman that I had worked with at BMC was starting a practice here. And he's like, cybersecurity is really hot. I had never even worked in cybersecurity. I had rarely ever done any sort of risk related calculations. So this was a great opportunity to sort of look at value through yet another lens and really sort of dive deep into that. So that's a
This
little bit about my background.
No, that's super helpful. Thank you. It's interesting because the risk-related calculations, obviously, there's a lot of, the cybersecurity is a big sector. It's increasing massively over the last 3 years,
Massively.
5 years, and there's so many niches within it that just more and more companies are growing at unbelievable speeds. And
Hmm.
it's true, the value story for cybersecurity around, what does risk mitigation actually mean in terms of dollar terms? I'd love for you to just explain a little bit more of that side.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when I started at Zscaler about 5 years ago, we had a very sort of simplistic way of calculating the impact of risk. And we used standard sources out there like IBM Pomon study, and Verizon publishes a lot of statistics about risks, data loss, cyber events, what's the cost of it. And so initially we would come in and say, we think this many devices would be infected with malware, and, it takes you 3 hours to fix it. And, what's that sort of cost of downtime of an individual? And then on the more radical end, we would look at ransomware and data loss. And I would use those metrics whether I went into Goldman Sachs, Walmart, or, a smaller company that runs a whole bunch of different car dealerships. There was no sort of nuance. And the reduction that we would espouse, again, was very sort of Zscaler drives the savings. So we wanted to actually be a lot more nuanced around that. We had to look for different entities that had very sort of fine-grained risk and loss metrics based upon the company's industry, their revenue size. There are certain companies that are just great bigger targets. Now they're going to have a lot more sophisticated security metrics out there. So we sort of evolved our model by pulling additional insights into it. And then we wanted to look at what does Zscaler bring to the story? And the best way of looking at how we are able to reduce that probability. So that's basically what you're going to do is say, we use a Monte Carlo model to calculate risk, and you put in, the high and low range of loss and the probability of loss. And then if you want an ROI on the control you're bringing, you would then say, and we're going to reduce X by 4%, 15%, 99%, based upon something, based upon what the control is bringing. So that's the other difficult element of that. And the way that we have been doing that is looking at the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which, are you familiar with MITRE?
No, I don't know it.
It's a open source consortium that looks at cyber attack. It has a kill chain. The bad guy enters into your organization. They figure out how to span across your organization. They are able to improve their access. They're either sending out data or encrypting everything, so it's like 1,300 techniques that these bad guys will use. And so the way that we look at it is Zscaler for users with sandbox, and brings that level of security up X%. So it was a very cool mathematical analysis, which really it lent a huge amount of credibility, because
For
usually
sure.
folks that we're talking to are very familiar with MITRE. They probably use it in their own,
Yeah.
disciplines. And so we're bringing another thought leadership to them around that.
I mean, it's not too dissimilar to insurance underwriting. You're trying to assess risk, right? I mean, there's
So
a real
much.
parallel there. You're driving the upside of mitigating the risk. They're talking about the downside of the loss, the potential
Yes.
loss, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a lot of organizations out there that coach chief security officers on how to talk to their boards about
yeah,
risk, and using very similar methodologies. Obviously, if I was a CISO at a company, I'd look at it a lot more detailed
sure.
than we're doing that. So,
Really interesting. Look,
yeah,
let's change course again. I'd love to get your thoughts on the look. We all AI is on everybody's mind, right? And I'm
yeah.
sure even from the perspective of business value consultants, would love to hear from you how it's impacting, affecting your work. How is it either supporting and maybe even supercharging some of the aspects of your work? And equally, what are some of the risks that you see in applying AI, generative AI in general, to business value consulting?
I would probably suspect a year and a half ago, I might not have had much to say on this topic, but it has just exploded at Zscaler internally. They've turned on internal chat, technologies. We are able to use that. We're not able to go out and look at some other chat tools out there. But just from the first time I was using it, and I see a lot of little ads like, oh, these boomers are still using it like Google. Okay, I am, but I'm still getting a huge amount of value out of it. Like, I've been in the airport. It's hard to focus. I need to pull it together. These, as we were talking about, these tight decks, and, I can just type in there, how does Zscalers reduce security friction, bring value to Transocean's guys on the rig? Like, I could sort of, make that be 4 or 5 compelling statements, but chat will just quickly do that. And then I'll say, all right, I need it smaller. I need it longer. Can you use this word? Can you give me 5 different ways of saying that? And it's like, it's craziness. I can upload. So and now we can save our own prompts. So I have prompts that are like, I'm just starting to work with Oceaneering. Can you go through their annual report and tell me what top initiatives they're talking about? Can you
For
pull?
the meta information, it's really good, right?
It's unbelievable.
But generally, it's a technology that's probabilistic. It's not deterministic. And in the universe that you work in, precision is so important. How do you balance the generalized probability output that the LLMs will deliver with the precision that you need to absolutely be certain of information and a business case that you deliver a prospect?
So there's two things I'd love to sort of mention about that. I actually saw a post today that was like, AI is not eliminating your job. AI is changing your job description. The reason why this is so powerful in my hands is I know what I
Yeah.
want that executive summary to say. I know that I want it to sort of pull at the heartstrings of the pain points. I want it to have an homage to a corporate strategy. I can't just have the corporate strategy, but I want my champion to be able to link it to how is Pepsi Cola bringing refreshments to the world faster or easier, or UPS delivering packages faster and more secure. I want all my business cases to be able to have that. The other point that you were making is about trust. And I think, that's sort of something that when I think about the work that I was doing 15 years ago, that is one of those things that building a trusting relationship and giving yourself the time and energy to develop that relationship with your champion
Mm.
is the only way you're really going to build that trust. I could calculate something flawlessly in a vacuum, and even if I just handed it to them, they might say, okay, I can see that's exact, but I haven't built that level of trust for him or
and
her.
and you haven't built that calculation in collaboration. When you collaborate with them, that's where the trust happens, right? It's that interaction.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. So like when I was at VMware, I did a lot of technology cost models. I mean, that was like what I loved. And I still love building models. But there I would say, okay, you've got 100 VMs that would have been in the old world, 100 physical servers. And now you're collapsing them 5 VMs to one server. And let's do all the maths. And I never went in and said, are you running Dell servers or are you running, Hitachi server? I always went in and I said, I'm going to do a generic server and it's $5,000 and it's got 2 NIC cards in the back and your network rack is going to have 48 ports and it costs $13,000. Like I never was like asking them, how much do you pay for this, that, and the other thing. Now when I'm at Zscaler, technology cost takeout is such a huge part of the value proposition we can bring. But now I've got, like 8, 10 primary competitors, and the way they price things is so radically different. And so, to do these type of models, I've had to use a lot more searching and skunkworks and looking at CDW to see if maybe they have a price for a firewall or, like we aren't doing things as like generically as possible. But if I give my customer the transparency into my models, which is why, I sort of love using Excel is because, I can say, okay, you have 5 servers here and you have this and that,
Yeah.
and they can see very plain Jane what my assumptions are. And that level of transparency and collaboration, hopefully will continue to build that trust throughout the life cycle.
Yeah, for sure. Another topic that I think is also really important because of AI and because of also just our natural experience with digital tools is today's attention span, right? We were talking about this before, just before the session, and the fact that what was a perfectly decent size of a document, 30 slides, 25 slides, today you can no longer expect people to take the time to read that. And in an environment where the material that you share is so crucial to a decision, and where attention focus matters, how do you adapt to an environment where people have much less attention span, dedicate less time, but equally where the decision is equally important?
Yeah. I mean, I really am trying to be as cognizant to how my materials look as well as what I have in them. Because I have taken some classes in like digital design and charts. And I think one time we talked about Tufty and stuff like that. I think that is there. If you can be very crisp and take away a lot of chart junk, the data that you're trying to share is just a lot more hyper consumable. If you don't have a huge amount of stuff on your slides, it can be a lot more consumable. Like cut as much fat out as possible. People, I think we used to say people can only consume 3 data points. So don't put 5 or 6 on there. And this is again, another way that I'm using AI is I'll say, these are my 4 bullet points. They're too long. Help me cut them down. Make this tighter, snappier. It's a bullet point, not a sentence. And so now I'm spending more time thinking about the bigger vision and socializing that material with my champion and getting their feedback than I am struggling with grammar and that type of stuff. It really is. When I look back at the materials that I had presented, one time, I sat down with the CIO. I can't believe the gentleman stayed at the table for as long as he did. We went through like a 130 slide deck about, economics of VMware. And it's like,
Well, I'm
you
sure,
know,
I'm sure, and I'm sure that that individual was also like learning, right? It was something that they could take back and
I mean, look, his folks said to me, he loved details. He'd love to sit through this. And I'm like, great. That's why I love language.
for Lisa. I do have a couple more questions for you. The first one is, you've obviously worked in business value consulting across a number of different organizations. I'm sure you've met and worked with wonderful people. Who of everybody is the best value consultant, value engineer you've ever worked with?
Since I've been working in this area, there are just so many individuals where I've loved to steal their work and repurpose it. One gal that I want to mention, Edmay Erno, and Edmay, if I murdered your last name, I'm sorry. She is in our organization in Switzerland, and like everything she does, I just like gobble up. It's beautiful. It's hyper consumable. But the other thing that I think is so amazing about Edmay is I can tell she builds these trusting collaborative relationships with her customers. She's not an expert in cybersecurity, but she is an expert in how to build materials to really sell that business case internally. So I think folks like that who have empathy and can build those relationships, those are what,
Yeah, 100%.
great people. Yeah.
Good to hear. And in terms of salespeople you've worked with?
There is a gal that I've worked with over the past few years here at Zscaler also, Amber Palmario. Amber first of all, she's just the total goat. I mean, she's one of our highest sales individuals out there.
Nice.
But again, she creates such great trust with her customers that when we start to go through the process and look at what they have in terms of their current state technology, what can they take out? How would that economically impact, their P&L as an IT group? And then doing the softer savings. Like now, the other thing I'm seeing, and I know we wanted to go quick, is just people just want to look at hard savings. And it's like, guys, that's table stakes. We should be talking about the
Totally.
soft savings. So anyway, Amber is just a great pal and a great
Super.
collaborator.
I'm
So
sure she'll love to hear that.
yeah,
Lisa,
that's
thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation.
oh,
Fascinating.
it was wonderful. Thank you so much.